He stood frozen beneath the glittering lights of the gala, clutching a champagne glass he couldn't taste. Across the marble floor she appeared, elegant, radiant, surrounded by 3 children with matching eyes. His heart stuttered. Not 1, not 2, but 3. His triplets. Ethan Caldwell left a woman at the edge of motherhood for a billion-dollar merger, and now, 5 years later, he stood in a ballroom filled with applause, but none of it could silence the thunder in his chest. Because the woman he abandoned wasn't just surviving, she was thriving. Hello, family. Before we dive into this powerful journey of regret, redemption, and unshakable love, what do you think? Could you forgive a love that left, only to return with remorse in its eyes? Tell us in the comments, and if you believe love and resilience deserve a voice, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It was past midnight when Ava stirred awake, the sheets tangled around her swollen belly. The penthouse was silent, yet something felt off. The air, once filled with laughter and lavender candles, now carried the chilling weight of change. She sat up slowly, cradling her stomach with one hand, and reached for her phone with the other. A message blinked on the screen. "We need to talk. Ethan." The words hit harder than any scream. Her breath caught. Her eyes blurred. The man who had once vowed to love her beyond reason had just summoned a storm with 6 cold words. She found him on the balcony, staring out at the skyline as if searching for courage. His tailored jacket hung stiffly over his frame, and his watch, a gift from her on his last birthday, glinted in the moonlight. He didn't hear her approach at first, or maybe he did and didn't care to turn around. "You couldn't wait until morning?" Ava whispered. Ethan exhaled hard. "I've accepted the offer." Her eyes narrowed. "The merger?" He nodded, not meeting her gaze. "It's done. I'm leaving for Geneva next week. Anya's father is flying us in for the announcement." The room spun. Ava took a shaky step back. "You're leaving?" "Ethan, I'm 7 months pregnant with your children, all 3 of them." "I know," he murmured. "But this is bigger than us, Ava." "No," she said, voice rising. "This isn't bigger than us. It's betrayal dressed in business suits. It's cowardice pretending to be ambition." He looked at her now, and for a second his expression cracked. "You'll be fine. You always are." The tears that had gathered finally fell. "You don't get to decide that for me." She turned and walked away. As the elevator doors closed behind her, Ava looked down at her belly and whispered, "You deserve more than this." That night, as rain swept across the glass windows of the hospital room, Ava sat alone during her emergency appointment. The doctor spoke calmly, explaining signs of early labor, but the truth was louder in her chest. She was being left behind, and she was going to do this alone. 2 weeks later, Ava delivered the triplets prematurely. She named them Lily, Emmett, and Kian, names she'd whispered to herself during nights when Ethan came home too late, too distant. The NICU became her world. With trembling hands, she touched the clear walls of each incubator, tears dropping onto hospital booties and wristbands. Her voice became a lullaby, sometimes shaky, sometimes strong, but always present. "You're loved. You're safe. I've got you." She told them stories of constellations, of brave astronauts and gentle giants, anything to keep herself sane through the beeping machines and sterile lights. At one point, a nurse asked if the father would be visiting. "No," Ava said softly, brushing her daughter's tiny hand. "He's on a different planet." Her parents helped where they could, offering soft smiles and hot tea during long NICU shifts. Ava's father taped drawings to the fridge, stick figure families with 4 happy faces, one of them always carrying a stethoscope. In the quiet hours, Ava sat on the couch surrounded by medical textbooks and baby bottles. She re-enrolled in school during maternity leave, typing essays while rocking Emmett's bassinet with her foot. Life didn't give her time to grieve the loss of Ethan. It gave her bottles to sterilize, lectures to attend, and children to love. And she did. Fiercely. Her classmates called her Supermom. Professors asked how she did it all. Ava never had a perfect answer. She only knew that every breath she took was for Lily's giggle, Emmett's sleepy snore, and Kian's curious eyes. 3 years in, she was wearing her white coat and badge as a pediatric surgery resident. Some nights, she paused outside the children's wing just to remind herself, "I made it. We made it." She never heard from Ethan. Until the gala. The TechMed Innovators Gala was a sanctuary of glass and light, where polished floors reflected ambitions and chandeliers sparkled like constellations above an elite crowd. Laughter mingled with the clinking of glasses. But Ava wasn't here to bask in applause. She was here to represent survival. As she stepped into the ballroom, wearing a custom emerald green gown that hugged her figure with understated elegance, murmurs followed her. Eyes lingered on the confident doctor who walked in with not just a poised smile, but with 3 children, miniature versions of herself, walking by her side like a procession of purpose. Lily, Emmett, and Kian clutched Ava's hands, their tiny black formal shoes clicking softly against the marble floor. The triplets had been coached, no running, no yelling, and yes, they could each carry one of their favorite small toys. Lily held a plush bunny close to her chest, Emmett clutched a miniature race car, and Kian had his plastic astronaut badge pinned proudly to his jacket. "Mommy," Lily whispered, her eyes wide as she took in the grandeur of the venue, "are all these people here for you?" Ava smiled, bending to fix a stray curl from her daughter's forehead. "Some are, but mostly we're here to talk about how we can help other children." They made their way toward the stage where Ava would later deliver her keynote on advancements in pediatric care. Her research had led to breakthroughs in early neonatal interventions. Her team's work had saved dozens, if not hundreds, of young lives, and much of it had been inspired by the fragile beginnings of her own. On the other side of the room, Ethan Caldwell adjusted his cufflinks, his tailored tux sharp and sterile. Beside him stood his wife, Anya, graceful in her silver gown, her presence composed but aloof. As CEO of one of the leading AI health systems in the country, Ethan had been asked to present one of the evening's awards, but his mind wasn't on his speech. Not anymore. His eyes scanned the room for something he hadn't even realized he was seeking, until he found her. It was as if time collapsed. 5 years vanished in a single heartbeat. Ava. She hadn't changed, and yet she had. There was a serenity about her now, a quiet command of space. Her posture was regal, her hair swept up, her smile soft and grounded. She was speaking to a colleague, gesturing with ease while her children clung to her sides like living, breathing proof of everything he had missed. Ethan froze. The champagne glass trembled in his hand. Triplets. His chest tightened. They were his. He barely heard Anya speaking beside him. The words fell like background noise to the roar inside his head. The night he walked away, he hadn't known Ava was carrying 3 children. He only remembered the silence in her voice, the finality in her eyes, and the cowardice in his own retreat. Now here they were, smiling, alive, bright-eyed. They had his cheekbones, his dimples, his legacy. Ava looked up, drawn by instinct or perhaps memory, and saw him. Their eyes locked. There was no scene, no gasps, no dramatic music, just a frozen glance between 2 people tethered by an old love and the lives it created. Ethan took a step forward, but Anya's hand on his arm brought him back. He nodded stiffly, excused himself, and walked toward the refreshment table, suddenly needing to disappear into the crowd. Ava turned to her children, her voice calm. "Let's find our seats, sweethearts." They moved like a unit, passing by attendees who whispered admiration. Someone leaned in and said, "Dr. Rowan, your story is an inspiration." She thanked them, never missing a beat. But her heart had shifted. She knew he had seen them. Later, as her name was announced and she walked toward the podium, Ava caught her breath. The lights were warm, but her core remained cool, steady. She began to speak, not just about technology or medicine, but about children who fight battles before they can speak, about mothers who become heroes out of necessity. Behind her voice was the unsaid, the absence, the sacrifice. Applause thundered, cameras flashed, and in the 3rd row, Ethan sat silently, watching her with eyes that held both wonder and remorse. As the gala flowed into its mingling phase, Ava stood near a tall window, draped with silver satin curtains, her children seated nearby, nibbling on tiny fruit skewers and pastries. She laughed lightly at something a colleague said, though her eyes subtly swept the room for one presence. She felt him before she saw him, a quiet shift in the air, the way conversation around her dulled. "Dr. Rowan?" The voice behind her halted her breath. She turned, and there he stood, Ethan Caldwell. His tuxedo was immaculate, but his voice was frayed. His eyes searched her face like a man trying to remember how to breathe. It had been 5 years, but her presence still held power over him. Ava's posture straightened with grace, not defensiveness. "Ethan." A pause hung between them. He offered a stiff, unsure smile. "You look, well." She nodded, her expression unreadable. "You seem surprised. I didn't expect to see you here, let alone them." As if on cue, Emmett wandered over, crumbs on his collar and curiosity in his gaze. "Mom, who's that?" Ava placed a gentle hand on Emmett's shoulder. "This is someone I used to know." Lily and Kian joined, peering up at Ethan. He crouched slightly, instinctively, and smiled. "Hi, I'm Lily," she said proudly. "That's Emmett, and he's Kian." "Do you work with Mommy?" Ethan's throat tightened. "No, I used to know her too." Kian tilted his head. "Are you our doctor?" Ava looked down at her children and, with a calm breath, answered, "This is Ethan. He's someone important from my past." Lily's brows furrowed. "So, you're not our dad?" The question sent a tremor through the circle. Ethan's eyes met Ava's. She gave him nothing. No nod, no mercy. This was his moment to speak. "I am," he said softly, voice trembling. "I am your father." Emmett looked puzzled. "Where have you been then?" "I wasn't ready," Ethan answered, kneeling slowly to their eye level. "I made a mistake, a very big one." Kian studied him for a long beat, then offered him a half-eaten grape. "We share snacks," he said solemnly. The simplicity shattered Ethan's composure. He took the grape with shaking fingers. "Thank you," he murmured. Ava ushered the children a few steps away. "Go finish your juice, loves." Once they were gone, she turned back to Ethan. Her voice was firm, layered with years of silence. "You don't get to just appear and announce yourself." "I know," he said. "I didn't expect forgiveness. I just wanted to see them, to see you." "You saw," she replied coolly. "Now what?" Ethan faltered. "I thought of you, every day, but I was afraid of what I'd done, of who I became." "You thought about us," she said, eyes narrowing, "while holding hands with your new wife, while collecting awards and signing checks?" He didn't deny it. "I never told them your name," Ava continued. "Not out of spite, but because I didn't want them to ask questions I couldn't answer. I gave them truth, not fantasy." "And now?" he asked, barely audible. "Now," she said, folding her arms, "you stand here. But you don't get to pretend we're still a chapter left unwritten." "I'm not pretending," he said. "I know what I missed. I know what I lost." Her face softened just enough to betray the deep exhaustion she carried. "Then don't try to reclaim it. Respect the life we built without you." His eyes welled as he looked back at the children. "They're remarkable. They're alive," she said, "and kind, and whole. All without you." Ethan lowered his gaze. "I saw your name on the keynote. I didn't know it was you at first. But when you stepped on stage, God, Ava, I felt like a fool. You were always meant for more." Ava didn't answer. She didn't need to. "I'd like to talk," he said quietly. "Somewhere private." "If you'll allow it." She considered it, scanning his expression for signs of performance. Only sincerity stared back. After a long pause, Ava nodded once. "All right, 10 minutes. Not for you. For closure." She signaled to the nanny, who quickly arrived to supervise the children. Lily looked up, puzzled, but didn't resist as her mother walked off with the man who'd once promised her the stars. The marble steps leading out to the Gala's patio shimmered under string lights, a quiet contrast to the noise of the ballroom behind them. Soft jazz played through hidden speakers, the air laced with hints of jasmine and distant ocean breeze. Ava stood still, arms folded across her waist. She didn't face Ethan at first. He broke the silence. "I don't deserve to be here. I know that." "No," Ava said without turning. "You don't." Ethan stepped forward, his polished shoes silent against the stone floor. "I left. I was afraid of becoming something small, afraid that fatherhood would trap me before I reached what I thought was greatness." "You didn't just leave," Ava said, finally facing him. "You left without a word of real explanation. No goodbyes, just a message. You abandoned me. While I was carrying your children, I thought the merger would secure our future," he said, ashamed. "But the truth? I didn't want to risk falling behind." Ava's eyes narrowed. "Behind who? The version of you in your head, or the men at the top of some hollow empire?" Ethan didn't answer. "I had premature labor alone. I held their hands through surgeries. I stayed up for nights with formula stains on textbooks and took anatomy exams with a baby monitor buzzing under the desk," she said. Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. The weight of her words was enough. He looked down, blinking back the sting. "And I wasn't there." "No," she said. "You weren't. But I was. Every second." Ethan rubbed the back of his neck, A nervous habit Ava remembered from the early days. I read an article about a single doctor in Chicago saving neonates with self-developed methods. I didn't know it was you. That's because you weren't looking, Ava replied sharply. You never were. He sighed. I came tonight thinking it would be another award ceremony, but when I saw you, and them, I felt like the floor opened beneath me. I had no idea they were even born, because you never asked. She turned away for a second, watching the moonlight dance on the nearby water fountain. What do you want, Ethan? I want to know them, he said, even if just from the sidelines. Ava was quiet for a moment. They have everything they need. They've grown without you. I see that. But I want to do something, he said. I've set up a trust for their Educat Ion, medical support, opportunities, no strings. Ava blinked. Why? He stepped closer, cautiously. Because I owe them that. I owe you more than I can explain. I spent years building software to track heartbeats while I ignored the ones that mattered most. A soft sound interrupted them, small feet padding toward them on the stone. Keon appeared, holding a small flower pinched between his fingers. Mommy, he said sleepily. Lily says she saw a rabbit in the garden. Ava crouched, brushing a curl from his forehead. We'll check it out in a minute, love. Keon noticed Ethan and blinked up at him. Are you Mommy's friend? Ethan knelt too, eye level again. I'm someone who hopes to be. The boy tilted his head, thoughtful, then offered him the crumpled flower. It's for your suit. You look serious. Ethan smiled, the gift trembling slightly in his hand. Thank you, Keon. Ava watched them in silence, her throat tight. After Keon wandered back inside, Ava sighed. He doesn't understand what's happened, and maybe that's a blessing. I don't want to confuse them, Ethan said. But if there's ever a moment, later, when they want to know, I'll be there. Ava turned to face him fully now. I'm not promising you anything. You walked away from something sacred. You don't get to rewrite that history with money or regret. I understand. But if you mean this, she added, if this isn't just guilt, then you stay quiet when needed, and speak only when you've earned the right. He nodded solemnly. And you never, never make them feel like they were an afterthought. I won't. Her tone softened, not with forgiveness, but with clarity. They're amazing, Ethan, and I've built a life around their joy. Don't disrupt that. I won't, he said again, firmer. Silence settled between them once more, but this time it wasn't as sharp. It was the silence of a chapter closing slowly, not slammed shut, but eased toward resolution. Ava inhaled deeply. We'll see. That's all I can say. Ethan nodded, stepping back. That's more than I expected. They both turned at the sound of laughter drifting from the garden. The triplets had found the fairy lights and were trying to catch their reflections in the fountain's surface. Ava's voice cut through gently. Time to go, stars, she called. The three raced back, arms linked. As the nanny escorted them toward the waiting car, Lily turned back to wave. Bye, new man. Ethan chuckled quietly. They're bold. Ava smiled faintly. They get that from me. A week after the gala, Ava's mornings returned to their usual rhythm. Early wake-ups, mismatched socks, cereal spilled on the counter, and a chorus of Mom, where's my lunchbox? She moved through the motions with practiced ease, but something in her spirit shifted. It wasn't sorrow. It was awareness. That night at the gala had cracked something open, not just the memory of Ethan, but the buried questions she thought she'd already buried for good. She didn't linger on them. There were clinic schedules to finalize, rounds to attend, and bedtime stories to read. And yet, she noticed the changes. The triplets' after-school science kit arrived with no label, but Ava recognized the handwriting on the card tucked inside, to the future inventors. Make something the world hasn't seen. Ava didn't mention it. Then came the scholarship notification in her inbox. A new fund had been created, 3 names listed, Lily Rowan, Emmett Rowan, and Keon Rowan. No press, no fanfare, just a formal note from a foundation she hadn't heard of before. She called the number. The assistant confirmed. It was anonymously endowed by a contributor who asked that the credit remain with the mother. That night, she sat on the couch after the children had gone to bed, holding her favorite mug. It wasn't filled with tea. It held silence, that quiet space between resentment and forgiveness. The next day, she found the letter. It came in a simple white envelope. No return address. But the handwriting was unmistakable. Ava. I won't ask for anything. Not a conversation, not a visit. I only wanted to leave you with something more than apologies. I've built many things in my life, platforms, partnerships, systems, but nothing compared to what you built without me. I was a fool to think success was measured in numbers. I see now that true wealth is found in the things we often overlook: kindness, consistency, love given when it's least deserved. You showed all of that to our children. If you ever need support, even indirectly, I'll be listening. Always from where I belong, the edge of your world. Thank you for raising them into wonders. Ethan. She folded the letter and placed it inside the wooden keepsake box where she stored the triplets' first socks, hospital wristbands, and crayon drawings with lopsided hearts. She didn't cry. Not this time. That weekend, Lily ran into the kitchen holding up a flyer from school. "Mom, they're having a junior science fair. Can we go?" Ava smiled. "Only if you promise not to turn Keon into a robot." Lily giggled, pulling Emmett and Keon into a huddle to plan their invention. They spent hours sprawled across the living room, papers, markers, plastic gears scattered like confetti. Ava watched from the kitchen, heart full. A few days later, she spotted a familiar figure across the fairgrounds. Ethan stood at a quiet distance, dressed in a simple coat and jeans. No cameras, no introductions. He lingered just long enough to watch Keon explain how his prototype could make water cleaner in hospitals. He never came forward, but Ava saw him. And this time, she didn't turn away. Back home, as the triplets piled into her lap with their tiny awards, Ava whispered, "You are so loved." "By you?" Lily asked, sleepy-eyed. "Always," Ava answered. "And maybe by someone else in a different way." Lily yawned. "Okay, but you're our favorite." Ava kissed the tops of their heads, one by one. It started with a soft cough at breakfast. "Mommy," Emmett mumbled, rubbing his chest. "My tummy hurts." Ava placed a palm to his forehead, warm but not alarming. She kissed his temple and gave him ginger tea. "You probably just need a little rest." But by afternoon, things worsened. Emmett grew pale, his lips tinged with blue at the edges. His breathing came in shallow puffs. Within 30 minutes, Ava had him in her car, whispering calm reassurances while calling the pediatric emergency line on speaker. At the hospital, familiarity was both a comfort and a curse. Colleagues moved quickly, running tests, administering oxygen. Ava stood by Emmett's bedside, her medical mind racing, but her mother's heart thudding louder. Lily and Keon waited in the family lounge, a social worker keeping them company with coloring books and juice boxes. Ava had called her mother to pick them up, but the clock ticked slowly as the emergency room lights buzzed above. Ava didn't hear the footsteps. She turned at the sound of a voice, low, unsure. "Is he okay?" Ethan stood at the door, breathless and wide-eyed. "How did you know?" she asked, not unkindly. "I have someone watching the scholarship alerts." When the hospital admitted Emmett, his name flagged the system. Ava processed that quietly. "You have a tracker on them?" "Only to make sure they're safe," he said. "I know how that sounds. Like a man trying to protect something he abandoned," she said, her voice tired but free of venom. He looked past her to the child on the hospital bed, his features so similar to his own. "Can I sit?" She hesitated, then nodded. Ethan crossed the room and lowered himself to the visitor's chair, keeping a careful distance from the bed. His eyes filled with moisture as he watched the rhythmic rise and fall of Emmett's chest. "What happened?" he asked quietly. "Reactive airway flare-up," Ava explained. "He's always had a sensitivity. Could have been anything, pollen, dust, even school stress." "And he'll be okay?" Ava nodded. "They caught it early." Ethan sat back. "He looks strong." "He is," she said. "All three of them are." He looked at her now. "I don't deserve to be here. But I couldn't stay away." "I know," Ava whispered. There was a stillness between them, broken only by the monitor's soft beeping. Outside the room, nurses moved with purpose, but inside, time slowed. Emmett stirred slightly. Ethan tensed. "Can I?" he asked. Ava reached forward and gently placed Emmett's hand in Ethan's. The boy didn't wake, but his fingers curled instinctively. Ethan exhaled a sound that was nearly a sob. Ava turned away, giving him privacy. They stayed like that for nearly half an hour. Eventually, Ava's mother arrived with Lily and Keon, their small voices echoing in the hallway. "Can I go see Emmett now?" Keon asked, tugging at Ava's coat. Ava knelt. "He's sleeping, sweetheart." But someone else is here, too. The boy peeked into the room, his eyes finding Ethan. "Oh," he whispered. "Dad's back." Ava blinked. "Why'd you call him that?" Kian shrugged. "He looks like us." Ava smiled faintly. "He does." Lily approached the door next. "Will he stay this time?" Ava's voice cracked. "I don't know yet." Inside, Ethan watched the children from the reflection in the glass. Later, before he left, he turned to Ava one last time. "I'm not trying to claim them. I just want to be where I can help. And what if they start needing you?" Ava asked. "Then I'll be there, even if it's only as a shadow." She paused, then said softly, "Shadows can be dangerous if they overstay." Ethan smiled sadly. "Then I'll wait for the light." He left quietly, his presence lingering like a question unanswered. Weeks passed. Emmett fully recovered, bouncing back with the resilience that only children seem to possess. He returned to building pillow forts and drawing pictures of dragons holding syringes, a charming blend of imagination and his mother's profession. But something had shifted, not in Emmett alone, but in the air of their home. Ava felt it during bedtime stories, in the way Lily asked about that man with the sad eyes, or how Kian casually wondered if all dads wore the same cologne. One evening after school, Ava found a crayon sketch taped to the fridge. Lily had drawn 5 figures, herself, Emmett, Kian, Ava, and a man standing just off to the side. He was labeled, maybe Dad? Ava stood in front of it, arms crossed, the corners of her eyes stinging. She didn't remove the drawing. That Saturday, the triplets asked to visit the museum downtown. A new interactive exhibit about robotics and medical tech had opened, and Emmett wanted to show off his knowledge from his latest science book. They wandered through rooms filled with buzzing gadgets, holographic hearts, and walls that spoke. The children moved excitedly from station to station. Ava stayed close but allowed them space to explore on their own terms. Near the pediatric innovation section, Ava heard a familiar voice. "Hey, future engineers, need help decoding that?" Ethan stood beside the triplets at a coding station, wearing jeans and a navy sweater. He wasn't imposing, just there. Lily turned to her mother. "Look, Mom, it's him again." Ava approached, calm and composed. Ethan stood. "I didn't know you'd be here," he said quickly. "I can leave if—" Ava shook her head. "They seem happy." The kids gathered around a mechanical teddy bear that mimicked heart rhythms. Ethan bent to explain the technology, weaving metaphors they could understand, how the robot bear had feelings and needed care like real patients. Kian, impressed, whispered to Ava, "He's really smart." "I noticed," she replied softly. After an hour, Ava checked her watch. "Time for lunch." Ethan straightened. "I brought a picnic," he said, then hesitated. "May I share it with you?" "There's more than enough." The triplets immediately cheered, settling the matter before Ava could respond. They sat in the museum's courtyard. Ethan had packed fruit, sandwiches, and juice boxes with cartoon wrappers. Ava watched her children laugh, not just at the food, but at Ethan's surprisingly decent knock-knock jokes. It felt surreal, like watching a storybook scene she never planned to read again. Afterward, Lily tugged on Ava's sleeve. "Can he come next time, too?" Ava crouched down. "Sweetheart, we don't know yet. He's learning to be around. That takes time." "Okay," Lily nodded. "But I think he's trying hard." That night, Ava stood by the window, watching her children sleep. She thought about how they smiled more freely now, about the cautious joy on Ethan's face when Emmett leaned against him at lunch. He wasn't perfect. He wasn't a hero, but he was trying. And somehow, against all odds, that was beginning to matter. The email arrived on a quiet Wednesday morning, tucked between an insurance follow-up and a newsletter from the Children's Library. Subject: Pediatric Surgical Research Exchange, Zurich. Invite Dr. Rowan. We are pleased to offer you the Distinguished Fellow Residency at St. Elizabeth's University Hospital for a 12-month term. Ava read it 3 times. Zurich. The opportunity was monumental, a dream forged during long nights spent reading medical journals at the kitchen table while rocking triplets to sleep. But now it was real. A year abroad. Advanced funding, housing, full academic support for her children. The hospital wanted her. The research world needed her. And for the first time in a long while, Ava didn't know what she wanted. She waited a few days before telling the children. "We might have the chance to live somewhere new," she said during dinner, carefully watching their reactions. "Just for a year." "Where?" Emmett asked. Zurich, in Switzerland. It's very far but very beautiful. Will it snow? Lily asked, eyes wide. Lots, Ava smiled. And you'd get to go to a school that speaks 2 languages. Kian tilted his head. Can we take our beds? We'd have new ones, she said gently. But we'd take all your books and your toys. The idea seemed magical to them. They danced in circles after dinner, already planning which stuffed animals to bring. Ava smiled, though a tightness stayed in her chest. Later that week, Ethan reached out. He had heard from a colleague at the foundation. Switzerland? He said when they met at a quiet cafe. Is it true? Yes, Ava said plainly. It's a 1-year residency, fully funded. That's incredible, he said, trying to sound supportive. But something in his expression cracked. Ava stirred her tea. I haven't accepted yet. Why not? She looked up at him, steady. Because the moment I say yes, you disappear again. I wouldn't, he said quickly. Wouldn't you? Her voice was measured. Because this time they'll remember. They'll ask why the man who started appearing in their lives suddenly stopped. I wouldn't vanish, he repeated, softer now. I'd find a way, a place nearby. I can work remotely. I'd make it work. Ava raised an eyebrow. You'd uproot your empire for them now? I'd reshape it. I won't miss again. The words landed heavily, not as a promise, but a plea. You can't just say things, Ethan, she replied. You have to show them. Not with money, not with trips or toys, with presents. I'm ready, he said, eyes holding hers. If you'll let me try. Ava leaned back, crossing her arms. It's not about letting you. It's about whether you're truly prepared to stay in the hard moments, not just the highlights. He nodded. Then give me the chance to prove I can. That night, Ava stood in the doorway of the triplets' bedroom. Their room glowed softly under string lights and shelves of bedtime books. She knew what Zurich meant. A new chapter. A leap forward. But what she hadn't anticipated was that progress didn't always mean walking alone. Sometimes it meant reaching back, not to hold on, but to walk beside someone willing to follow through the dark. The acceptance email had been waiting for days. On a quiet morning, after the triplets left for school, Ava clicked reply and typed, I accept. We'll see you in January. She pressed send. There was no applause, no grand rush of satisfaction, just the stillness of commitment, a door opening to something vast, unknown, and filled with promise. The days that followed were a blur of logistics, housing coordinators, passport renewals, international school paperwork. The children buzzed with excitement, filling notebooks with doodles of snow-covered houses and Alphorns. But amidst their joy, Ava noticed moments of hesitation. Kian asked if he'd have to make new friends again. Lily wanted to know if her favorite librarian could come too. Emmett, more withdrawn, stayed quiet when she brought up packing. I'm just thinking, he told her, hugging his robot plush tight. It's a big move, right? Ava nodded, crouching to his level. It is, but you won't be alone. He blinked up at her. What about him? It was the first time any of them had referred to Ethan without prompting. You mean Ethan? She asked gently. Emmett nodded. He's not coming with us, Ava said softly. But he wants to visit. He wants to stay connected. That's up to all of you. I think I want that, Emmett whispered. He's trying. Ava didn't answer. She just pulled her son into a quiet hug. The next afternoon, Ethan showed up unexpectedly, holding a file folder, not flowers. No expectations, just purpose. I've secured a temporary residence in Zurich, he said calmly, handing her documents. Short-term lease. I'll work from there, quietly. You don't have to tell the kids yet. I just wanted to be available. Ava opened the folder. Real documents. Real plans. A consulting position lined up at a local firm. No ego, no fanfare, just quiet action. She looked up, surprised. I told you, he said. I'm not disappearing. And you're okay not being in control? She asked. I was never in control, he replied. That was the lie I chased. This time, I just want to be present. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't emotional. It was real. That night, Ava didn't speak of Ethan to the children. She didn't want to overpromise or complicate what they were still processing. But she saw something new in their eyes, a blend of bravery and anticipation, the kind that comes when children begin to believe life can change. And not always for the worse. 3 weeks before departure, Ava hosted a small farewell party at the clinic. Colleagues, friends, and her support group of single mothers came with balloons, cards, and goodbyes laced in love. Ethan attended, but stayed at the edge of the crowd. When it came time to speak, Ava stood with Lily in one hand and Emmett clinging to the other. Kian was perched on a stool beside her, fiddling with a snow globe someone had gifted them. "I'm not leaving because I want to escape," Ava told the room. "I'm leaving because I want to grow, and I want my children to see that when life offers you a path forward, you can walk it, even if it means saying goodbye to comfort." There were tears, hugs, a dozen voices promising to keep in touch. Outside, as the sun began to set, Ethan approached her. "I booked my flight for the same day as yours," he said. "Different plane. Same arrival time." Ava tilted her head. "You're really doing this?" "I am." "And you'll stay in your lane?" she asked, half smiling. "Only if you let me build one beside yours." Ava didn't respond. She looked toward the triplets instead, laughing in a circle of balloons and well-wishers. "I guess we'll find out," she said. Snow greeted them the morning they landed. Thick, powdery flakes danced through the air as Ava stepped out of the Zurich airport with a child's hand in each of hers and Kian trailing closely behind, his tiny suitcase bumping against his boots. Their new apartment sat near a park lined with leafless trees and stone benches dusted with white. Inside, the space was light-filled and warm, with wooden floors, tall windows, and a small fireplace that glowed softly in the evenings. "Can we build a snowman today?" Lily asked, pressing her hands against the glass. "After we unpack," Ava replied, lifting a box labeled kitchen onto the counter. Their first few days passed in gentle rhythm, settling in, grocery runs, school orientation, and walks through cobblestone alleys that felt like something out of an old picture book. The triplets marveled at the new language, giggled at the sound of Swiss-German greetings, and quickly learned how to order hot chocolate from a nearby cafe. Ava kept her routine steady, morning drop-offs, hours in the surgical research wing, then evenings helping with homework under thick blankets. Ethan never imposed. He rented a quiet flat 2 tram stops away and sent Ava a single text upon arrival, here, in the background. No expectations. True to his word, he made no grand entrances. Instead, he sent books in the mail, science kits, language learning puzzles, a snow globe with a note that read for the nights when home feels far. He even left warm pastries on their doorstep early one morning, unsigned. But Ava recognized his care in the way the chocolate was layered, just the way Lily liked. She didn't tell the kids where they came from. One afternoon, Emmett brought home a paper from school with a gold sticker and a beaming grin. "We had to say who inspires us," he said proudly. "I wrote 2 names. Oh." Ava smiled, folding laundry. "You and Ethan." Ava's hands paused. "I told the teacher he helps people like you. But from the tech side," he added. "That counts, right?" She nodded slowly. "It counts." That weekend, Ava found Ethan waiting quietly near the school gates as the triplets attended a Saturday nature class. He wasn't watching them. He was watching the trees sway, lost in thought. She approached. "They're adjusting well," she said. He turned, eyes brightening at the sight of her. "Because of you." She crossed her arms gently. "And maybe a little because they believe in second chances." They stood there, side by side, not speaking for a while. "I don't want to confuse them," Ethan said eventually. "But I'd like to be part of their ordinary, drop-offs, recitals, whatever makes sense." Ava considered it. "As long as you remain consistent." He nodded. "I've learned that love doesn't just show up when it's easy. It stays when it's not." Later that week, Ava invited him to a school project showcase. The moment Ethan entered the room, Emmett waved from across the crowd. "Ethan, look what I built." No hesitation, no fear. Kian rushed over to pull him toward a model hospital built from recycled boxes, and Lily beamed as she showed off her presentation on heart health. Ava watched from the back of the room, hands folded. This wasn't a reunion. It was a rebuilding. No fanfare, no labels. Just the slow reintroduction of a man once missing, now present. When they walked home later that evening, Ava wrapped an arm around Lily's shoulders as the little girl clutched her backpack tight. "Mom," Lily asked, "is it okay if I start calling him Dad again?" Ava blinked, then swallowed. "If that feels right to you," she answered softly, "then yes." Lily nodded. "I think he's trying hard enough now." Snow still blanketed the sidewalks as March approached, but inside the Rowan apartment, warmth came from more than just the radiator. It came from laughter, shared soup, messy drawings and piano keys played out of tune. And every so often, it came from Ethan. What had once been awkward visits at the edge of playgrounds or awkward hallway greetings had turned into casual routines, Tuesday drop-offs, Thursday story hours at the library, weekend lunches at the quiet cafe by the water where Ethan always brought the same 3 orders. He no longer tried too hard. He simply showed up and stayed. One evening, Ava returned late from the lab to find all 3 children fast asleep in the living room. Kian clutched a coloring book. Emmett still wore one shoe. Lily had a storybook splayed across her chest. And Ethan, quiet as ever, was on the floor beside them, leaning back on the sofa, a blanket half draped over his lap. He looked up as she entered and rose slowly, brushing crumbs from his sweater. "They insisted on waiting up for you," he whispered. Ava stepped around the scattered toys and placed a hand over her heart. "Thank you. I didn't ask." "You didn't have to," he replied. They stood there a moment, their eyes soft but uncertain. Ava moved to gather Lily into her arms. "They're happy. They're home," Ethan replied. The next week brought a string of shared dinners, sometimes simple takeout, other times Ava cooked and Ethan washed dishes without prompting. They didn't speak of what they were or what they had been. They spoke of homework, sleep schedules, school projects, and pediatric ethics. One Thursday, Ethan brought a gift for Ava, not flowers or jewelry, but a framed printout of her published research paper, the one that had gained international attention for its advancements in neonatal precision surgery. She stared at it a moment longer than she expected. "I know you don't celebrate yourself enough," he said, "but they should see this." "So should you." "Thank you," she said, voice low. He didn't linger, just nodded and helped Emmett clean the spilled cereal from the counter. Later that night, after the kids were in bed, Ava stepped out onto the small balcony. Ethan followed with 2 mugs of tea. She accepted hers without a word. The city lights shimmered around them. "You never pushed," Ava said suddenly. "I couldn't afford to," Ethan replied. "One misstep, and I'd have lost the chance to earn any trust." She nodded. "You've changed. So have you," he said, "but not your strength." That was always there. A pause lingered, familiar, but no longer uncomfortable. "You still love them more than anything," she said. "With every part of me." He didn't say "in you," but Ava heard it anyway. She turned to him. "If you stay, if you really stay, you have to know it doesn't mean we go back." "I'm not trying to rewrite the past," he said. "I'm hoping to be part of whatever future you'll allow." She stared at him for a moment, then looked back out at the city. "We'll see," she whispered. The next morning, Lily bounded into the kitchen, proudly announcing she'd invited Ethan to watch their spring showcase at school. Ava simply nodded. "He'll be there." And he was. Ethan arrived early, sat in the front row, and clapped louder than anyone when Kian recited his poem about courage. He took photos, wiped tears, and quietly handed Ava a cup of coffee without being asked. The triplets never looked back to check if he'd stayed. They just knew he had. Spring warmed the stone paths of Zurich. Blossoms burst across balconies. Children returned to park swings, and Ava felt something unfamiliar bloom quietly within her. Peace. The triplets had grown into this new rhythm beautifully. Lily practiced writing in 2 languages, sometimes narrating her stories aloud with such theatrical flair that even the apartment walls seemed to listen. Kian had joined a weekend nature club and would return covered in mud, leaves in his hair, talking about beetles as if they were royalty. Emmett had taken a liking to chess and often beat Ethan with a proud smirk. Ethan had become a fixture, never overstaying, never falling short. On rainy days, he'd bring puzzles or games. On dry ones, he'd walk them to school and linger just long enough to make them feel secure, not dependent. Ava noticed that when Lily fell and scraped her knee one afternoon, she reached for Ethan's hand before realizing. She paused, then didn't pull away. Later that night, Ava watched them from the hallway as they played a board game around the coffee table, their laughter filling the apartment. She leaned against the wall and closed her eyes. She wasn't falling. She was being pulled gently, pulled into something slow and real and fragile. That night, over warm pasta and candlelight, the triplets eating noisily in the background, Ethan poured her a glass of wine. "I was thinking," he began cautiously, "when the residency ends, what then?" She paused. The question had hovered for weeks, but no one had dared speak it aloud. I've been offered an extension, she admitted. Another year, possibly longer. Full academic track. Ethan's eyes lit up. That's amazing. I haven't decided yet. He looked at her, truly looked. Because of me? No, she said truthfully. Because of me. And them. He nodded slowly. And if we stayed here, would I still be allowed to walk beside you? Ava considered it, not the question, but how she felt about having to answer it. I don't know what this is, she said, but it's working, for them, and for you? He asked softly. She didn't reply immediately. Instead, she stood, walked to the window, and watched as Lily tried to teach Emmett how to curtsy in their socks. For me, she began, voice steady. This is the first time I haven't felt like I'm holding everything alone. Ethan's voice was gentle. Then maybe the question isn't what I want anymore. It's whether you'll let yourself want it too. She turned, meeting his gaze across the candlelit table. She didn't say yes. She didn't say no, but she didn't look away. The next day, Emmett came home with a school assignment. Draw your family. He drew 5 stick figures. One held a stethoscope. Another held a laptop. The 3 smallest wore capes. Ava smiled as he held it up proudly. We're superheroes, he said. All of us. Later, when she hung it on the fridge, Ethan silently stepped beside her. I guess that makes me part of the drawing, he said with a quiet laugh. Ava looked at the image, then at him. You always were, she whispered. The envelope sat on Ava's desk for 2 days. It was thick, official-looking, with embossed lettering and the seal of St. Elizabeth's University Hospital. The final contract. The full extension offer. 12 more months. Research leadership. Permanent faculty track. Priority placement for the triplets at the local international academy. The kind of offer that rewrote careers. But Ava didn't open it. Not because she didn't want it, but because for the first time in a long time, what she wanted was more complicated than a simple yes or no. She took long walks through the Lindenhof district. She watched the triplets thrive in the museum science club. She listened to Ethan quietly tell bedtime stories about constellations and courage. She watched herself, how she smiled more easily, how the dark circles beneath her eyes had faded. One night she found herself sitting on the floor in the triplets' room while they slept, her back against the wall, heart full and aching at once. She wasn't afraid of the future. She was afraid of leaving behind the strength it took to reach it. The next morning she found Ethan in the kitchen, packing school snacks and humming softly under his breath. You've become very domestic, she teased, pouring herself tea. He smiled. It's the peanut butter. Calms the ego. She held up the envelope. His eyes didn't widen. He didn't reach for it. You going to open it now? He asked. No. He looked confused. I'm going to say yes, without needing to read every clause. Ethan blinked. I already know the details, she continued, and I already know we're not going back. His breath caught. Zurich? She nodded. For now. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full of everything unsaid. Then Ethan spoke. And me? Ava didn't flinch. I can't promise forever, Ethan. I can't even promise us. But I can promise today, and tomorrow. One day at a time. Ethan stepped forward slowly, cautiously. That's everything, he said, voice low. That's all I ever wanted. Ava exhaled, a small, genuine laugh escaping her lips. You used to want billion-dollar valuations and front-page headlines. He chuckled. Turns out I just wanted a seat at this table. She turned toward the hallway, where the children's laughter echoed like morning music. Then back to Ethan. You have it, she said. That weekend, they moved into a slightly larger flat, still cozy, still modest. Ava set up a writing nook by the window. The triplets decorated their shared room with glow-in-the-dark stars and paper snowflakes taped to the walls. Ethan didn't move in, but he was there. Every morning, every night. Quiet, consistent. One evening, after dinner and before bedtime, Lily asked a question as she stood brushing her teeth. Mom, are you and Dad something again? Ava looked at her reflection in the mirror, then turned to her daughter. We're becoming something better, she said. Something honest. Lily nodded thoughtfully, then ran off to organize her stuffed animals. Ava stayed in the hallway for a moment, heart steady. Later that night, she sat on the balcony with Ethan beside her. They didn't hold hands. They didn't need to. I said yes, she murmured. To Zurich? To all of it. He looked over at her, eyes soft. She added, "And when I'm ready, I'll say it louder." He smiled, but said nothing. Because this time, Ava's silence meant everything. The auditorium buzzed with excited chatter and soft instrumental music. Rows of proud parents filled the seats. Children fidgeted in costumes, clutching cue cards and whispering lines to themselves. The backdrop on stage was a painted mountain, a symbol of resilience, titled in block letters, "Our Journeys." Ava sat in the front row, her heart full. She smoothed the front of her dress and glanced at the folded program in her lap. 3 names, 3 performances, 3 small worlds that had become her everything. Beside her sat Ethan, not out of obligation, not in shadow, but present. Together, the lights dimmed, and Lily was the first to take the stage. She wore a white coat and a toy stethoscope around her neck. "My mom says being a doctor is more than fixing," she announced proudly. "It's about standing beside people when they're scared." "I want to do that too." Applause rippled through the crowd. Kian followed with a speech about ecosystems and protecting what we care for, even tiny beetles. He held up a drawing of a tree with 5 stick figures under it. "Families grow too," he added, pointing at the picture. Then Emmett stepped up last. He took a moment before speaking. His voice was steady but soft. "I used to think families had to look a certain way, that they were either perfect or broken." He paused, scanning the crowd. "But now I know that families can take time. They can fix themselves. They can grow back." A hush fell over the auditorium, and sometimes the best things take a second chance. He bowed. The applause was louder this time. Ava's eyes glistened. She reached out, fingers gently brushing Ethan's hand. Not a grasp, just a quiet signal of shared pride. When the showcase ended, the triplets came bounding off stage. "You heard us, right?" Emmett asked breathlessly. "Every word," Ava said, pulling them close. "You didn't cry, did you?" Lily teased. "Just a little," Ava admitted. "The happy kind." Kian tugged at Ethan's coat. "Did you see the Beatles?" "I wouldn't have missed it." Ethan smiled. They walked out of the auditorium under a sky painted in pastels, sunset bleeding into soft lavender and gold. The 5 of them, a unit of arms and overlapping conversations and child-sized backpacks bumping against their legs. When they reached the square near the tram stop, Ava paused. "Wait," she said, looking around. "What's wrong?" Ethan asked. She turned in place slowly, then smiled. "Nothing's wrong. It's just this. This is what I never imagined, but always hoped for." She looked at her children, then at the man beside her. "You don't always get to redo the beginning," she said. "But sometimes, if you're lucky, you get to rewrite the end." Ethan's eyes softened. "I'll follow your lead. Always." The triplets climbed onto the bench nearby, dancing to a tune only they heard. Ava watched them, 3 hearts that had taught her more about courage than any medical textbook ever had. Then she turned to Ethan. "No more waiting," she said quietly. "This is our life now. Let's live it." He nodded, tears just beneath the surface. All in. They didn't kiss. They didn't need to. Their fingers met, intertwined for the first time in 6 years. And as the tram approached, Ava whispered to herself the truth she hadn't dared speak until now. "We made it." If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that healing takes time and that love can return when we least expect it, then don't let this moment end here. Tap that like button to show your support for stories that celebrate strength, forgiveness, and the resilience of the human spirit. Do you believe in second chances? Have you ever had to rebuild your life from the ashes of heartbreak? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We read every word, and your story might just be the encouragement someone else needs today. And if you found hope in Ava's quiet strength, or saw a piece of yourself in Ethan's journey toward redemption, subscribe to Love and Twilights for more emotionally rich, uplifting stories that speak to the heart. We release new narratives regularly, each one crafted to remind you that no matter how broken a beginning may seem, there's always a path toward something whole. So join our growing family of dreamers, believers, and storytellers. Because here, love isn't just told, it's felt. Like, comment, subscribe, and never stop believing in the power of a new chapter.